Welcome to 10X Live, the show where we're revolutionizing business, one strategy at a time. At 10X Solutions, we have a bold vision to democratize business excellence. We believe every organization deserves the tools to thrive. Our secret sauce, the perfect blend of cutting-edge AI, the proven power of organizational health, and growth management. We assembled genius teams equipped with advanced analytics to supercharge decision-making and skyrocket efficiency. From AI-augmented strategy sessions that spark creativity to precise planning powered by human ingenuity, we're your catalyst for sustainable growth. We keep it real, we keep it honest, and we keep you ahead of the curve. Join us for the 10X revolution. We're not just adapting to change, we're leading it. Let's map out a future where your business doesn't just survive, it thrives. This is 10X Live. Let's transform business together.
Hello, this is 10X Live. It's Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 11 a.m. morning Pacific Standard Time. And we are back and ready to talk about a few topics today, following up from last week where we talked a little bit about bottlenecking and the benefits of that. But today we're going to talk about embracing the discomfort. And we also have a guest on here as well. And so we are very excited for today's topic and today's session of 10X Live. My name is Kyle Vernon. I'm with Vernon Business Partner Solutions. And shortly here, we'll have Jay Scott joining us, the mastermind of 10X Live and 10X Solutions. Welcome, Jay. So glad to have you. And then our third and not unseen guest before, if you've been following us, is Denise. And she's here with Journey Mentoring here. And we love to have her on. She's a fellow GE like myself. We are all in the consulting space. And we're just so excited to be here and ready to talk and embrace the day. And so welcome, Denise. Jay, good to see you as always. And before we get started, all those people that have kids going back to school, can we just give a little yes? We're so glad to send them off. Excited about it. Send those kids back to school and get them back into routines. I've been waiting for it, and we thrive off routines, and they are off kilter, to say the least, right now. And so, yes. Denise, where are you at with the kiddo scene?
Yeah, we do not. We are the amazing aunt and uncle to all our nieces and nephews. Yeah.
Love it. That works just fine for me. It is.
Yeah, we get credits for taking them camping.
Yeah, as a parent, I appreciate those that will adopt my kids and take them and help lead them. It takes a village, right? And you are a big portion of that on supporting others. So welcome back to the school year. It's a good time to be having it. Today, we're going to be talking about embracing the discomfort for progress. Will be our primary topic. But Jay, do you have anything that you want to start us with, or any type of updates that you'd like to share?
Not personally. This is a sad day for 10X Live. I know you didn't say it, but I will let everybody know that this is your official last episode with us, which is very sad. So I want to take a moment and just say thank you for everything you've done. This has been an amazing experience for me. You know, when we first started talking about it, you know, our motivation for this was not to make a lot of money streaming or build a large audience streaming or doing those sorts of things. It was a way to really kind of keep moving us forward in times of difficult times for us. You know, if we're just being vulnerable and honest with things, and you being a galvanizer, and both of you, honestly, you know, as being a part of this, but both of you being galvanizers and encouragers. I can't tell you what this time, you know, with both of you has meant, but, you know, Kyle, getting me started, you know, I told you off the stream, but, you know, I'll tell everybody here, you know, I would not have made the progress I've made in my business if we weren't doing this. You know, if I didn't have this going on as well. And so whether or not this thing continues, whether it, you know, what it is and it becomes and doesn't become, or where it goes, I don't have the best words, but I'm just trying to say thank you.
Well, thank you, Jay. I mean, it's been amazing. I don't for those that have been here before, Jay and I have talked about this, but he lives in California, I live in Michigan. We've never met in person, but we've had the opportunity to build a really strong relationship through this, organically and offline. A lot of our work has been primarily done here, and we just try to bring authentic and genuine content to this channel every time, and it's been great. We really dive into some topics. We go on tangents at times, but it's been surprising how much we've been able to work with each other, and I've really liked it. I've said this before, but it was the best part of my week. The most of this summer, I've had the opportunity, the strange opportunity of being a stay-at-home dad. But Wednesdays were my day where I got to meet up with James. Uh, it gave me a lot of purpose outside of being a stay-at-home parent. Love my kids. So happy that I could do that with my three boys. But to be able to come in here and do that has been great. So thank you. Thank you for raising your hand and creating the group. That's how we met Denise, is because you said, hey, are there any small groups out there for 6 types of working genius? And there wasn't. And you took the lead, which is probably not necessarily your typical cup of tea, is it, Jay? Like, I don't know that you are necessarily that lead taker. Maybe you are.
Yeah, not instinctively. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. No. But
I don't know where that fits in for the 6 types of working genius of who the starters usually are. If that is an ideation or if that's at the end cycle. But yeah.
Well, that's an interesting idea too, because there is, I do operate. I'm wonder and invention, which is full ideation. As a human being, though, you can't like sit and think about things. You have to actually do them too.
Yeah.
So I think over time, it just becomes you have an idea and it kind of like forces action in a similar way to like how authors let characters develop themselves.
Yes.
In a similar way, sometimes ideas, kind of force action and become something themselves too.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I was on a walk with my wife and I had to peel off and leave her by herself. And I'm just adding this in here. So she's a discerner tenacity. She was actually very frustrated with me because she didn't have a podcast. I said, well, you can be stuck in your thoughts. For Jay, you're probably like, most of the time, that's a great thing, right? And she literally said, it's not productive. Like her tenacity of her walk and his purpose, she's like, it's not productive for me to be in my own thoughts with something like that. So it's just wild how different things are for different individuals. And that's why I love the camaraderie. It's why we need different people to work together with different types. Don't hire people that look like yourself, right? It's really important, especially in small business. You need that variety. And
as I've observed, and as I've observed the two of you creating this and actually launching it, I have observed that it was so necessary that Jay had the wonder and invention, but then it was also necessary that he connected with you, Kyle, with that galvanizing and enablement so that things did move forward. I think there's all of us can reach into either our competencies or our frustrations and actually get the work done. But it's such an easier lift if we have someone that has those geniuses that complement ours. So it's been fun to watch the two of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would we have been able to have easily identified this before, Jay, without knowing what we know from Working Genius to come with humility to this and just be like, hey, I need you? Like, would you have been able to do that as easy before?
No.
I don't think I would either. Like I told the story early on about my supervisor was a WI and I knew I was going to be enablement. I was scared to go to him, and mostly because of my enablement and how different we were. And then we worked great together. It helped so much. Once we both knew and it was on the table and we couldn't wrestle through it anymore, it was great. So that's what brought us together. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity. I wouldn't have done this without you. I kept saying that I needed to do it. I talked about it. Denise got to hear it because you're part of our network of 6 working geniuses. It was all about the live streams, but guess who started the live stream, Jay? Wasn't me. Talked about it. Talk is cheap. You're the one that got it going. So here we are.
Yeah, good times.
It is
And
good
now you're
times.
leaving, so sad.
It is sad. It is sad.
It's good though. It's really good. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
I'm just sad for me.
Mm-hmm.
We have to embrace the discomfort, I suppose, right?
There you go. There's our segue.
It is. And so that is our topic. And so to set that scene, we talked a lot of that last week about bottlenecking. And so if you're a Michigander, everybody goes north for the holidays. So we know all about bottlenecking, trying to go north for the holidays. And that's a bad thing. But what we're talking about here is actually a good thing, identifying that bottleneck and why is it not working. We talked a lot about Amazon versus FedEx and actually how that worked, where the bottlenecks, how they overcame that. They created their own fleet, exhausted the mailing system, right? Once they identified those bottlenecks, because they had plenty of production, they had the products, but how do you get it there in 2 days? FedEx model sent everything to one central location. Amazon started putting plants in each state in different locations so they could get that 2-day, or even wild to think about, not anymore because we're used to it, but same day shipping. Like, how's that even possible? It's magic to me.
Yeah.
But once we were able to identify and talk through that, it's really important to our business and our productivity models to be able to identify those bottlenecks. How do we get through them? And so,
and to summarize it, every company has a constraint, has a bottleneck currently, has something that is slowing down their throughput, their ability to get products into people's hands and paid for it, right? Every company has a bottleneck. And in your example, I think it's such a great example because it's one that we can all understand and unpack. Is Amazon, as it's growing, relying on FedEx to ship their products? Well, now all of a sudden shipping becomes a bottleneck, right? They have the products, they're selling the products, but now there's a bottleneck because they can't get their products to people fast enough. So it's such a great example again, because one of the first things they did was exploited the bottleneck, right? And so in terms of that, and this, what that means is they went and rented a bunch of trucks, right? They didn't try and say, hey, we're not going to solve this until we've built a fleet ourselves. They went and rented a bunch of trucks while they were building their fleet. So they removed the bottleneck. And I have somebody at my door, so they're knocking pretty aggressively. I'm gonna go see what's up with that, but I'll be right back.
Okay.
And then I'll continue.
Good luck with that. Yeah, I love the opportunity that we had to discuss it, because when you hear bottleneck, it feels very feels like a really strong word to be using within a business. Like, bottleneck sounds really bad. It is really bad. But once you can step back and actually look at it and analyze it, it's actually, you can take that deep breath and understand where the bottleneck is, how do we address it, and where do we work into it. And so that is one of the few topics that we've been talking about as we started with hardcore psychological safety, that Jay has been just really diving into deep as we go through the model and the different stages of it.
And there's something to be said for actually achieving bottleneck, right? Because we all say that we want to avoid it and get rid of it as quick as possible. But if you're doing the work and gaining enough traction to create bottleneck, then you've got something that you can see as, oh, okay, this is the next step. This is the next level. I love being able to help businesses look at why that's not a problem. Like, okay, who would you be as a company if this didn't exist? But since it does exist, what can we do about it? And how does this give us either more information into who we are and who we want to be, or does this give us more information on who we are and who we want to make sure we don't become?
Yeah. What
I
if
love
you don't
what
hit a
that too, 'cause
bottleneck as an
that's
organization?
Say it again.
every organization has bottlenecks.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I was just thinking, if you don't hit it, are you not maximizing? I mean, you're
Right.
probably not. You're probably not producing. You're not. You're not getting to where you need to be. Like, you should run into it at some point, right?
Mhm.
I'm sure every organization was. I was just trying to think of the other side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea, the theory of constraints and the process of continuous improvement is that you identify the constraint and then you effectively widen it, and you widen it artificially if you have to, right?
Mhm.
But you do everything you can to widen the that bottleneck so that more can go through it. Because if it's the bottleneck, then by definition, then you're increasing throughput by widening it.
Mhm.
In the example that we gave last week, which is a little bit fuzzy, but a good way to explain it is, let's say you have a process that has to go through A, B, and C, and it takes 30 seconds to go through A, it takes a minute to go through B, and it takes 30 seconds to go through C, right? So B is taking twice as long as it should, and so that's the bottleneck. It doesn't matter how much you speed up A or C,
Mhm.
right? You can pour all the resources into making A and C efficient and better and more productive, and you can even create efficiency metrics that show that they're hyper effective, A and C.
Mhm.
But B is the bottleneck, and so you're not actually getting anything more through the system until you address the bottleneck, right? And then, so how do you exploit that? How do you potentially do that? Well, maybe you buy a second machine, or in that case, or in Amazon's case, you rent a bunch of trucks,
Mhm.
right? So, but then elevating the constraint is when Amazon actually built their fleet, right? So exploiting it is like a short-term solution. How do we increase the bottleneck to increase throughput right now, to increase the profitability of your organization very rapidly,
Mhm.
right? But then what's the long-term solution for that? And then once it's no longer the constraint, because by definition, once you've widened it, it's no longer the constraint, then there's always a constraint. So then the constraint's moved.
Yeah.
The bottleneck still
So
exists. Now it's somewhere else.
yeah. So when you're approaching bottleneck, and then you talk about at first you're just going to exploit that bottleneck. So that's more of the stopgap, right? Like
Yes,
that's like,
exactly.
what can we do to continue to be productive while we're trying to figure out what is the long-term solution? But in the meantime, instead of just letting the bottleneck continue to be such a burden to the organization, let's figure out something that we can bring alongside of it. Like an extra train track until we have another whole train.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, just to kind of wrap up the thought of it, one of the things that a lot of companies miss that's very important is when you've elevated the constraint, when you've actually rebuilt the train, and now is a lot of people forget to go back and remove the extra track that they put in.
Yes, yes, you're right.
And
You're
so
right.
and that creates inertia. And then eventually in an organization that becomes the constraint is you have so much bureaucracy and red tape and policies that don't matter because they're addressing something that was a problem a year ago.
Mhm.
So once you elevate it and you change the constraint, you start the process over because now you have to identify what it is. You don't necessarily know right off the bat what the next constraint is. So you have to go through the process of identifying it while also removing all of the stopgap stuff you put in place before because it may not be necessary anymore.
So I could see a small to medium-sized organization in that situation. How would you help them create transparency around, let's take the track off now because we've already got the other one, right? How would you help them? That's a great way to say that. But how do you help them take all those things out of the way now, because they are now blockers instead of enablers?
Right. It's a great question.
Great. Yeah.
Well, I think that's also a good segue to where we're going to, because I think part of today's topic, embracing discomfort, has to do with conflict, right, and change. And I think that I think the questions that you just asked, I think are largely answered with how do you handle conflict and how do you handle change and change management within your organization.
Yeah, I could see why this would be. You could create processes and you have some of those individuals that have been in the business and this is how we've always done things, right? but changing that and having to go through that conflict, removing the old track, that really resonates with me as you said that, as I try to think about, because I've had some special projects in the past where I've created some processes and it was my identity, right? Sometimes you put a lot of time and effort into that.
Yes.
And that's what your feather in the cap was. If you don't need it anymore, though, and that's kind of what that person was brought in to do. Yeah, that is that analogy is shaking me a little bit in terms of thinking through that process. That was, I could see why good conflict would be important, but then also being willing to be okay with your train tracks being removed, be a big part of it. And then does that mean you're no longer useful? Like that would be the thing I think probably people get hung up on. Like, okay, well, does that mean I still have a place? And that would be the ever evolving. The only thing that's constant is change, right? I guess that's where that comes in.
Yeah. And I could see how if there wasn't good vision casting around how we have now resolved this bottleneck, and now this is the new way we're going to operate, right? If there's not a lot of good vision casting or galvanizing around that, then you can create this splintered effect where you've got the people that are still bought into, well, this was the patchwork that we needed, and it's great, and it worked really well. Well, but now we actually have decided that we want to adopt the new way of doing things. I could see how that could cause some conflict, especially in a small to medium-sized business they're running lean anyway, and they don't have the mass of people to just be able to afford more than one or two people going in a different direction.
Yeah.
That's great, Kyle. But yeah, if I put blood, sweat, and tears into this thing that saved the company, because if we hadn't fixed this 1 minute delay on B because of A and C being already efficient, if I put blood, sweat, and tears into that, yes, it would take humility on my part and strong belief in the direction that we're going to be able to let go of that and say, okay, it is time to embrace the new.
Yeah.
Ooh, lots of discomfort.
Right. Yeah.
That is discomfort. I was going to say, Jay, how about, so I guess explain that stage for us, kind of set the scene for it, for embracing discomfort for progress.
Yeah.
There it is. Boom.
Yes, there's the definition covering our faces, except for yours, Kyle. But so yeah, I mean it's a part of hardcore psychological safety, right? That basically says that discomfort is a catalyst for growth, and a catalyst for change and progress. And so it's more, with the manifesto, with the Hardcore Psychological Safety Manifesto, it's more about like a declaration, right, of this is how we will behave. And so that's how it reads, right? But one of the things that we were just talking about that's a huge tie into this last sentence, right? Hard conversations and constructive conflict are essential, and we embrace these challenges to achieve our goals. So part of the answer is, as an organization, do you have clear values set around how you handle, optimization and change management?
Yeah.
Or conflict and discomfort?
Yes. Can I take it all the way back to how we behave? Like, this is how we behave, or do we know how we behave?
Right. Yeah, because if your culture says, don't rock the boat, then that's going to be a lot harder.
Yeah.
So how do you adapt to that?
That's great.
Combating complacency in there really sticks out in that definition too, because it, for so long as the early end of being a millennial or whatever you want to say with that, I'm about 2 years into being a millennial. That complacency was kind of the key. You get into a corporate world, you just come in, do your job, do it well, you get that promotion, you get your merit increases, you get your matching, and that complacency was almost encouraged. This is safe. go do this. You get great benefits. This will set your legacy for your kids. And now we've been in a big time place of discomfort with all these job displacements within that, because that model doesn't work. Pensions have gone away, right? There's been unions have been interrupted with that, and so that we are very much living in that where complacency no longer works. That model doesn't work. I mean, it does for some, but the easiest way they started doing these major layoffs when it was like the 90s is when they kind of started this to be able to clear it out. So that definition is powerful. You're bringing it today, Jay. Well done.
So let me ask then. So we talk about psychological safety, and part of this stemmed from the Elon Musk biography, where he kind of balked at and really attacked the idea of psychological safety. And my conclusion on that is he doesn't understand the definition, right? So what are some, so either one of you, what are some common misconceptions about psychological safety that makes people think that it's something other than, the ability to embrace discomfort, or that maybe there's a misconception that you can't have psychological safety and discomfort, right? Anybody want to try and tackle that one?
Yeah, I think the where you were going on, people thinking that maybe you can't have both. I think that's definitely a misconception. I think that that's one of those things that comes from the top down. Like, if I don't see leadership being able to embrace discomfort for the sake of moving forward, then I too am not going to perceive that as a good thing. I think being able to say that if there's a both and is important, but I think that has to be taught. Yeah. And I love Patrick Lencioni talks about, if you're the leader of the organization, then one of your roles is what does he call it? The CRO, the Chief Reminding Officer. Right. Like you have to be reminding your people often that this is who we are, and this is how we come to these discussions. And so I think modeling, how do we actually open up a conversation? Okay, this is going to be uncomfortable. And we don't actually know what the solution is, but we're inviting you to the table so that we can have that conversation. I think that would be a way to help maybe break down that misconception that they can't both exist together.
Yeah. And I think most time we do it, Jay.
I mean, psychological safety doesn't mean a safe workplace, right? Mm-hmm. In the sense of like that there's not going to be conflict or hard work or, discomfort, right? The psychological safety means that you know that the people around you have your best interest at heart, that you're all working for the same thing, that you could screw up and nobody's going to jump on that as a chance to politicize or gain from your screw up. It's a place where you could say, I messed up. It's a place where you could say you messed up, So I think psychological safety at its definition of vulnerability-based trust lends to discomfort, right? I think I can only have discomfort with somebody if I trust them. If there is that psychological safety, that opens the door to conflict, to healthy conflict. Otherwise, you have
healthy conflict. That's the key. Healthy conflict, because I can have conflict in an unhealthy way.
That's true. Right. Yeah. Right. And usually, what we're talking about with healthy conflict, it's ideological, discussion, debate, and sometimes even arguing around something that matters at work, around a decision or a process at work. Right. So you should have healthy conflict. You should have debate. You should disagree. And we can go into all of that too, because that goes into the next thing on the pyramid, right? Which is commitment, right? You can't have commitment without conflict, and you can't have conflict without psychological safety, right? So I think they have to go hand in hand, and I think that's one of the misconceptions for me is I think you have to have psychological safety to actually have positive discomfort.
Productive discomfort. Yeah, that's great.
So it's a culture thing, right? Isn't it? I mean, it's got to be primarily culture. And if you can, probably the biggest problem as a leader is that we wind up attacking the individual versus actual problem. Like you have to figure out as leader how to come alongside somebody. And I think that's a culture thing. And when we know that this is uncomfortable together, and it's not a personal attack, but hey, this is the job that was expected. This is a product we're trying to deliver. There is this issue. It does fall in your lap, but let's overcome the issue together, right? So that would be where you could have healthy conflict. And if people have buy-in in the company, they're going to take that personally. I think you want them to, don't you? You probably want them to take it personally because it means they have invested interest. If they don't care, then you're probably not the chief repeating officer of the mission and vision like you should be on that side of things. Yeah, good question.
So do you have any experiences stepping out of your comfort zone that would lead to unexpected success? And I think the key here that makes this question hard for me to answer, is the unexpected success. I guess one example we were talking about at the beginning, right? Like this show, I think that this show led me to action, right? I live in ideation. I do not live in activation. Galvanizing is a frustration, and tenacity is a frustration. And there has been a few doors that have opened now, potentially opened, just because of action. And this show is not comfortable for me. I wanted to call out sick to this show today because it's challenging, because it's hard for me, because it's not in my personality to put myself out there, and it's it takes a lot out of me, and it's absolutely in my frustrations in a lot of ways. Maybe that's too honest in that sense, but it's just being an example of an unexpected benefit, I guess.
This is a place of psychological safety, so that's not too honest. That's perfect honest.
Perfect. We're cultivating the right culture here for that.
We are.
That's really surprising to me, Jay, because I would think that you'd want to unpack a lot of your ideas, and so it seems like this platform would fit. But that just shows that it's always hard to recognize it or see it. So I haven't seen that show up with you, and I'm surprised to hear you. Yeah.
You got to bury it. You had to bury it a couple hours before the show, but yeah.
Well, we have to do all the things to make work happen. So my example would be, so going way back, I graduated with an exercise science degree. Fast forward, my most recent job was in insurance. I don't know that that's a clear path, but I was going into corporate wellness at Amway in Michigan, which is one of the larger businesses in the world. And what I had always heard is, hey, if you're an intern there, you'll get hired in. Well, I didn't really realize that when I signed on as a third-party contractor, that's not true. Being hired in was not guaranteed with that. And so right away, my corporate dream of getting in and doing exactly like what everybody said, hey, you got to get a degree, get in that corporate job, was really uncomfortable. Then I go to a $10 an hour front desk job, work my way. But then connecting through the internship, came back, went to Farmers, but I maxed that job out as a site coordinator. And so then I transitioned into insurance, and I really enjoyed that marketing side of sales, which I never knew. I wasn't exposed to. I was athletic training. I was sports, the coach, the leadership. When we do the Working Genius assessment, that's where it says I belong. And that's where I really enjoyed. But those skills really translated well into marketing, and I loved it. The sales culture was a really great place for me, for having that camaraderie, to have that conversation, to help others when they didn't want to show up and make sales calls, be like, oh yeah, come talk to me. Like one guy described that I was an energy giver, and I never realized it. But he sat next to me, shared a wall, and he said it was like a lot of people that would just come and they just wanted to pull some energy out of me to be able to do their sales job. So unexplained success there, I never knew it. I never knew why people wanted to come to me as a personal trainer, because I never had the sweet workouts. Like I see all these great online, The Biggest Loser was a big deal at that time, and they're doing incredible things. And I couldn't figure out why people wanted to keep coming because I was really just traditional sports. But I had really good success rates of repeat customers. And I do know now that it was, if we talk psychological safety, they felt safe with me. They could come and be vulnerable. They could show up and they knew that I was going to help support them to reach their goals. Full circle, which is why I think probably as a marketing rep, I had success there as well. So I'm thinking through this on the fly.
Yeah.
That's thought-provoking question.
And it sounds like a lot of like a series of stepping out of your comfort zones, kind of leading to, really opening up a career path for you and a future. I think it's awesome.
So great.
Well, and that's one thing that Denise and I have to be careful of in the Working Genius assessment. It tells us in our title that we will kind of show up charismatically and a little underprepared is within our how we do things. And so I think that, that might sound daunting to you, Jay, but I don't know that I could do it any differently, because to sit down and prepare a plan and really go through all the actions is really complex and draining for me. But so just showing it up and figuring out and failing forward, like now that I've heard that term, like, oh yeah, they're probably all galvanizer enablers and at the end of the spectrum, because we don't want to slow down and think about it and come up with a plan. We rather just fail forward because it's easier for us. It's natural.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that just leaning into that a little bit more, because of the nature of galvanizing being this gregarious, typically like very rallying kind of personality, there is a tendency to think, I can just pull this off and I don't have to prepare. And that is actually a disservice when we lean too hard into that, right? Because what we're doing is we are skipping pieces in the process, which all the work takes from the beginning to the end. So we're skipping some pieces of the process. And so we're just leaving stuff on the table, really.
Yeah. Good enough, probably, is what it comes to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just that every all work is a 6-letter word.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So it all has to go through. And if anybody's listening to this, what we mean by that is we're talking about the 6 working geniuses. All work has to go through wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity to get done, which spells out widget, which is a 6-letter word. So yeah, all work is a 6-letter word.
Yeah. Like good.
Right. So, and here's a good one to discuss, and we kind of touched on it a little bit before, but how do we differentiate between productive discomfort and unnecessary stress? Probably not well.
Yeah.
Certainly not perfectly.
Yeah.
It through what I like about conflict, though, is that it usually gets to resolution. So I think that my personality is less. I don't mind conflict a lot of times in terms of I don't like sitting in the discomfort because I know that it slows us down to our goals. And maybe that's just my working genius type. And so I kind of like embracing it, which I've realized that I'm the disruptor in my family because we have so many double responders that I'm okay with that conversation. But our holidays keep showing up the same, right? We keep showing up the same on that. And so I finally am like, we just need to have a conversation and then we would all be happier. So I'm okay with that. And how do you make it healthy?
Or how do you differentiate? How can you tell the difference?
Outcome.
I was gonna.
I guess if it gets resolved, I don't.
Yeah, and fallout too, right? Like if it was healthy and productive, then the fallout would be we actually do more. We actually become more productive, or become more efficient, or become more cohesive as a team. And then if it's not, then I think that's where we start kind of isolating, or we start going on and building our own kingdoms because this kingdom's not working for me.
Yeah. And I guess for me, if I could really oversimplify, it would be kind of the difference between being proactive and reactive, right? So if you are proactive in your discomfort, then you are choosing what you feel like you need to overcome or accomplish in that discomfort, whether it's through a conversation or an action that you have to take. So like, so I think if you're being reactive in a general sense, that is typically unhealthy stress, right? Because those are outside sources that you weren't expecting that are interrupting and causing you to stress about and creating discomfort that wasn't strategic. You weren't intentional about. And that's the other one too, is intentional versus unintentional. Because I don't think proactive versus reactive describes it perfectly, but I think intentional versus unintentional gets closer.
The unintentional versus intentional, I think that resonates well with me because those of us who are part of this Working Genius cohort of facilitators, we were on a call Monday and chatting about those of us who have tenacity as a frustration. And someone on the call said that they've started this hack for themselves, as what they call Tenacity Tuesday. And so they're choosing the discomfort of intentionally setting aside time where I'm going to do the type of work that I don't love because it needs to be done, versus not ever getting to it. And then I have to be reactive because I wasn't responding. And I also have to be less intentional because now I'm doing it on the fly because I didn't actually set aside time to do it. So, yeah.
Plus the stress of knowing you didn't get it done.
Oh my. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or the stress of now I'm going to be up till midnight because I know it has to be ready by 7 tomorrow morning. Yeah.
And that's a great example. The idea of, that Tenacity Tuesday, right? Where you are intentionally setting aside time to work in, your frustration, which is not comfortable.
Right. Yeah. But going back to every job being a 6-letter job, I still have to do it. Whether I'm part of a large corporation or I'm a solopreneur, I still have to do work that doesn't feed me. But I can decide to be proactive about it or reactive, or as you said,
Yeah, and I didn't even really think about. It's one of the things I love about our conversations here. Being so. One of the things we talked about is we don't always talk about the 6 working geniuses, but it's a part of everything we talk about. And so thinking about this idea of discomfort through the lens of the 6 working geniuses, and maybe we've already talked about it enough, but I hadn't thought about it beforehand. So I want to kind of sit there for a second. Because I think that when you do have to operate in your frustrations, that is a part of discomfort as well. So in a lot of ways, I think of discomfort as being challenging the systems, having the difficult conversations, having healthy conflict, coming to resolutions that drive an organization forward. But in a lot of ways, it's it's discomfort personally too, and so, I don't know, maybe Kyle or Denise, what are some ways that the 6 working geniuses kind of that model either helps us understand, things that might make us just, uncomfortable, and what that understanding might mean to either, to ourselves. And going back to the example of Tenacity Tuesday, right? So that's a frustration, that's a discomfort, and now we've used the 6 working geniuses model to understand it in a way that allows us to create action and get work done.
Yeah. So for me, so I have a coaching practice, and my typically I'm working with executives who are trying to figure out how to become more efficient or get past some of their self-ideated thinking. And so when I do coaching with them, I absolutely love that. That feeds me. I could do that all day long. After the coaching session, I love to do a recap for them, and I send them the notes from our meeting. That to me is tenacity work. Once I've decided though that Tuesday is Tenacity Tuesday, and I'm sitting down and I'm doing those recap notes, what I say to myself is, this is one of the ways that I serve my client. I serve this client well by actually taking time to commit myself to doing this tenacity work because I know what it's going to give them in the end. So it's a flip of, oh my goodness, I've got to do this versus I love this client and I want to serve them well. And this is one of the ways I get to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just saw we kind of hit your hard stop, Denise, too. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you're able to get that in. I'll just end by saying, I had this thought of, I already lost it, but
oh man,
it was good.
It was good. I'm sure.
It was good.
Well,
I'm
maybe
sure
this is not the
remember
last time that the three of us are together, but for now, it has been great. Thank you both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Denise. Appreciate you being on.
You're welcome.
So when you talk about embracing the discomfort and using the widgets, as you laid that out, Jade, that means that any part of the business, if we're talking strictly the 6 types of working genius, at least a third of the time you're going to be in discomfort because it's required. So that tells me every single task, every project, every day in your work, you have to. So if you're not willing to embrace the discomfort, then you're skipping part of the role.
Yeah.
You're actually skipping part of the job that's required in order to get to completion, whether you are the completer or you're the starter, anywhere in between, right? I hadn't really thought of it in that working sense, but discomfort is required in order to make progress. It absolutely is, which is why you said embracing here, right? That's part of how it's laid out.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, with the manifesto too, it's, the idea of embracing it is that action of not just accepting it, not preparing for it, not understanding it's coming, right? It's embracing it. It's knowing that it's coming. And when it comes, it helps you recognize it too. So that when the discomfort comes, you're able to respond positively to it, right? Yeah. By having that embrace it kind of mindset. Where if it's like prepare for, then it's like daunting, right? And now that you hear it's coming, it's like, oh gosh, okay, I have to brace myself because this is going to be terrible. As opposed to embrace, right? Oh, it's coming. Okay, this is a challenge. We've been waiting for this. Here we go. Let's go. Let's get this done.
Yeah, because it's especially important to embrace it because it's somebody else's joy when this is done right. If you're working in the right area, and if you're showing up and being a turd about it, while somebody else actually loves that, you wouldn't like that on your end when it's in the ideation phase, or when it's my part to finally get to start moving forward and really making progress to get to that completion. That is mind blowing.
One of the things you talked about is that we as people will follow the path of least resistance, right? We do it mentally, we do it physically, we do it in our jobs, we do it in our relationships, we do it all the time. And a good example of that is when it's called heuristics, right? But it's the mental pathways your mind makes so that it can solve problems. So that once it's solved a problem, it doesn't have to solve it again, right? Like it understands it solved it, and so it starts creating shortcuts. Well, it's creating paths of least resistance, right? Well, if you're always on the path of least resistance, then you are also in an entropic state. And entropy is a word that means that everything slowly dissolves, right? Everything slowly, everything is dying. Everything is slowly winding down. And if you are on a path of least resistance, then you are submitting yourself to entropy, right? And the only way you are going to continue to live, not even grow, is to continuously find ways to challenge yourself and to grow and to embrace the discomfort. And if that's true for us, how much more true is that for our businesses? Right. And if you're listening or watching, how true is that for your business? Are you stuck in a place where you care more and your people care more about being comfortable than getting stuff done and making progress?
Yeah. And pulling to my exercise background, like that's why we had to change exercise programs, because your body actually, if you do the exact same amount of weight, right? The same routine, you actually go backwards. You don't even maintain. You actually, what'd you say, dissolve? Muscles actually decrease in that. So even just physically.
Right.
Interesting.
And you say it's called atrophy, right?
Yeah.
When muscles dissolve. Yeah. So it's like, and entropy is like the same thing for like all of existence, where atrophy might be, the exact same concept, but for muscles. Yeah. Things shrink. Yeah. And that's crazy to think about too. I never thought about that as far as as working out. Yeah. I've heard about that you eventually hit a plateau and you have to like break out of it.
Yeah.
Like you have to do something, change your routine or something to break out of to basically keep growing. Otherwise, yeah, your body just starts. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's the path of least resistance. Your body learns how to do it efficiently too.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we're designed, because we have to save energy. So, yeah, just from the very start of existence.
Right.
Interesting correlation.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an interesting like dichotomy too of as people, we are pulled in two different directions, right? We know that discomfort leads to growth, and we also seek the path of least resistance. Yeah, so it's it's this, we're being tugged in two different ways. One is almost by definition subconscious, right? The desire to seek the path of least resistance is something that we don't necessarily think about, right? You don't have to like actively consider that. We just naturally do that. Where discomfort may either going to come from two different things. It's going to come from externally. It's going to happen to you and you're going to respond to it, and either you're going to grow or get crushed as a person, right? But you also have the choice to cause discomfort on yourself, which is what exercise is, right? Which is what studying is, which is what a lot of the things that we do, are those things.
Yeah, one of my favorite pastors I listen to, Erwin Raphael McManus, says freedom's on the other side of fear, right? Mm-hmm. So we fear the discomfort and we don't want to embrace it. We don't do it. But in order to make that progress, or maybe really truly meet those dreams, that's where the freedom comes on the other side of it, versus not ever taking care of it, not ever wading through it, not ever wrestling with it. And that is probably where we're probably as comfortable as we've ever been in society, right? I mean, in some ways there's lots of discomforts, but in terms of everybody, like one of the things I've seen for trending for actually weight gain is that during the summer, which actually should be a time when we consume less food, but because we are all in air conditioning, it actually doesn't slow down our consumption progress. But traditionally during a summer, when you have those seasons, like for Michiganders here, this should be a time of less consumption, but we're in the same climate all the time now. So that is just one of many factors where we've gotten to a more comfortable state.
Yeah.
But it's actually a negative consequence in some ways without recognizing it.
Yeah. 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 I think we've kind of touched on all of it for this. So just to kind of wrap it up for anybody, the conversation today was about, we've been continuing on the idea of hardcore psychological safety, which was a response to hearing Elon Musk's reaction to psychological safety. And so trying to understand how to synergize the idea of kind of a hardcore get it done workplace with a psychological safe workplace. And what does that look like, and how does that breed productivity, and what can that do for your organization, right? And these types of questions. And one of the principles of hardcore psychological safety is to embrace discomfort for progress. And so what we talked about today was that psychological safety is not mutually exclusive to discomfort. Psychological safety is not about creating a safe work environment. It's about creating a teams of people who trust each other, that they have their backs, and they're not going to politicize or start holding things against you, right? That everybody's working for the same purpose and on the same team in the same direction, and is striving to accomplish things together. That is a psychologically safe workplace, and it is a prerequisite to having good, healthy conflict and discomfort.
Mm.
So I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah. The importance of it. And I think that you've helped me to wrap my head around it more as well, or I know that you have, because when I first heard that, I really wasn't sure about the topic, because it sounded really inclusive and almost a little bit too soft for me. But as we dove into it, and then of course going through one of the steps here of embracing the discomfort, there's nothing soft about that.
Right.
But you do have to have the right culture for that safety that's been talked about. So I love it. It's been a great topic, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention and that of the audience as well.
Yeah, and even though it's your last episode, hopefully we can either have you back on as a guest sometime, or we can do some pre-records like we said. But you want to galvanize us one last time, man? Get us all pumped up and excited for the day.
Well, this has been 10X Live. I've loved my time here. I know that others have embraced this as well and have been reaching out. And for those that have been following us week to week, I do hope and I do believe that we have brought a lot of great topics. Some thoughtful content that you can bring back to your small businesses. And as we've talked about before, there is no better time for small businesses to start capitalizing on this new world where we have all this technology and we have especially all this information through AI now available to us to fill in those gaps for a more affordable price. And so thank you for that. You are a great human being, Jay. I really appreciate your time in doing this. And I guess for now, this is the sign off for me, but I imagine that I will be back. So make sure to check out 10X Solutions, and we will see you all again soon.
Yeah. And so we'll end it with with a little promo, huh? So 10xsolutions.ai.
Yep.
We have the 10X action plan, which is currently in just market testing to see if people like it and, how the systems work and all that stuff. So it's incredible value. Go to 10xsolutions.ai right now. And for only $5, you can kind of go through the process and get something that is probably worth closer to $500 to $1,000, $500 to $1,000. Easy for me to say. Big value there. So check it out. And we still have a couple of minutes, but man, Kyle, it has been an absolute blast. And I can't tell you how much I've learned too. And, we talk about that we've met because of the 6 Working Geniuses and being a part of kind of that cohort and that small group. And one of the things I've absolutely loved about our time together is just being reminded about how everything that we talk about relates back to the 6 Working Geniuses.
It's wild.
But how it can apply to everything that we do and everything that we talk about. And so that's been a lot of fun. Seeing my wonder and invention through your eyes in that sense. And then, recognizing that, there's a lot of room for growth for myself, and it's been awesome.
Likewise, one of my favorite people to work with is you, and then on top of that, having the WI, it is just captivating to me. You're like a whole different species to me, Jay. It's so wildly different than how my brain works, and I love it. It's fascinating. And it's absolutely needed. And I can't get to where I find the most joy without people doing the great work that you do within the things that bring you joy and energy. Yeah. So it's awesome. Thank you.
There it is. So everybody find out what your genius is, learn about that, and then start finding people whose geniuses are your frustrations, and start working with them and talking with them and start realizing the power of coming together on that is, it's changed my life.
Yeah, mine too. Even for your spouse, start small. Do it there. Your significant other, family. It's really helped with the conversations, just even at a family level, outside of even the workplace. In the workplace, you get into the productivity model, and that's where you really make the money. But even just the self-awareness for the portion there, well worth the money.
Yeah, and for couples, we know somebody who specializes in 6 work geniuses for couples. So reach out to us and we'll connect you.
Yes.
Well, Kyle, I will see you again, but I don't know if we'll see you. We'll see you again. But man, it's been a blast, and catch you later.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jay. Likewise. Bye, everyone.
Imagination's canvas, colors yet unseen. You paint with thoughts so vivid, a world of might have been.